Picture this. A man sits in his car, gripping the steering wheel, jaw clenched. Replaying a conversation from 3 hours ago, someone questioned his competence. Someone dismissed his idea. Someone looked at him the wrong way. And now, hours later, alone in the silence of his vehicle, he's still there, trapped in that moment, rehearsing comebacks, imagining confrontations, feeling his blood pressure rise over words that were spoken and forgotten by the person who said them. This is the modern condition. This is what we've become. Emotionally hijacked by the smallest provocations. A comment on social media sends us spiraling. Text left unread becomes evidence of rejection. Someone's tone, someone's opinion, someone's indifference, and suddenly our entire day is derailed, our peace shattered, our sense of self threatened by things that, in the grand architecture of existence, mean absolutely nothing. We live in a world that has become a minefield of triggers, where every interaction carries the potential for emotional devastation. An insult lands, and we crumble. Expectations go unmet, and we rage. Someone doesn't respond the way we want, and we catastrophize, creating entire narratives of betrayal and disrespect in our minds. We overthink until we can't sleep. We replay conversations until we make ourselves sick. We give other people's behavior so much power over our internal state that we become puppets, jerked around by strings we don't even see. And the terrifying truth is this: when you have no control over your inner world, the outer world becomes absolute chaos. You become a leaf in the wind, blown in whatever direction the last comment, the last glance, the last disappointment happened to push you. You wake up tired because you spent the night mentally fighting battles that don't exist. You lose opportunities because your ego got bruised and you reacted from wounded pride instead of wisdom. You damage relationships because you couldn't control the impulse to defend, to attack, to prove, to win an argument that never needed to happen. This is what it means to be emotionally vulnerable, not sensitive, not feeling, but undefended, against the constant assault of circumstances that will never stop coming. But there was a group of men 2,000 years ago who looked at this problem and said, there is another way. The Stoics didn't just philosophize about emotional control. They lived it, breathed it, trained it like an athlete trains for competition. They understood something that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm, that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies your power. The habit that makes you emotionally bulletproof isn't complicated. It isn't some mystical practice or secret technique. It's this: mastering your inner response. It's the daily, disciplined, relentless practice of pausing between what happens to you and how you react to it. It's learning to observe your emotions rather than being swept away by them. It's training yourself to reflect before you speak, to breathe before you act, to choose your response instead of being a slave to your impulses. This is the core of Stoic practice, and it is the single most powerful habit a man can develop. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, Emperor of Rome, wrote in his private journals about this very practice. Every morning, he would remind himself that he would encounter difficult people, people who were ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, envious. And instead of being surprised or offended when it happened, he had already prepared his mind. He had already chosen his response. He wrote that when someone insults you, when someone wrongs you, when someone behaves badly, the question isn't what they did, the question is what you will do with it. Will you let it disturb your peace? Will you let it compromise your character? Will you let their dysfunction become your dysfunction? Or will you pause, observe what's happening inside you, and choose a response that aligns with who you want to be rather than how you happen to feel in that moment? This was his daily training. This was the habit that allowed him to rule an empire with wisdom while surrounded by betrayal, war, plague, and constant threat. Seneca, another giant of Stoic philosophy, took this practice even further. He would deliberately imagine worst-case scenarios, not to torture himself with anxiety, but to remove their power over him. He would mentally rehearse loss, rejection, failure, death, not because he was pessimistic, but because he understood that the things we fear most lose their ability to shake us once. We've already confronted them in our minds. He taught that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of our emotional turmoil comes from our resistance to what might happen or our attachment to what we think should happen. So he trained himself to pause, to observe his reactions, to ask, is this within my control? If yes, act. If no, accept. This simple filter, applied consistently, transformed him from someone who could be emotionally manipulated into someone who could not be moved by circumstances beyond his power. Epictetus, who began his life as a slave and became one of the most respected philosophers of his time, taught that true freedom isn't about your external conditions, it's about your internal sovereignty. He said that people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of things. A man insults you, and you think, how dare he? But the insult itself has no power. The power comes from your judgment about it, your interpretation, your story about what it means. Epictetus trained his students to catch these judgments in real time, to see the space between the event and the meaning they assign to it, and to consciously choose a different interpretation. Someone disrespects you? Maybe they're having the worst day of their life. Maybe they're acting from pain you know nothing about. Maybe their opinion has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their own internal chaos. This practice, this habit of pausing and reframing, created men who could endure slavery, exile, poverty, and persecution without losing their dignity or their peace. Now imagine the transformation this creates. Imagine a man who once reacted to everything, who took every slight personally, who couldn't let go of arguments, who lay awake replaying moments of embarrassment or anger, who gave his power away to anyone who knew which buttons to push. Now watch him change. Watch him begin the practice of pausing. Someone says something cutting, something designed to provoke. And instead of the immediate surge of rage, instead of the impulse to strike back, he pauses. He feels the heat rising in his chest. He notices the thoughts forming. Who does he think he is? I need to put him in his place. But instead of acting on them, he observes them. He watches them like clouds passing across the sky of his consciousness. And in that space of observation, he makes a choice. He asks himself, will responding from anger serve me? Will it make the situation better? Does this person's opinion actually matter? Is this worth disturbing my peace? And more often than not, he realizes it isn't. So he lets it go. Not because he's weak, not because he's afraid, but because he's strong enough to choose his battles, wise enough to know that most battles aren't worth fighting, and free enough that he doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. This becomes his way of life. Someone tries to guilt trip him, and he recognizes the manipulation for what it is, observes his impulse to comply, and calmly declines without explanation or apology. Someone tries to trigger him with judgment or criticism, and he pauses, considers whether there's truth worth extracting, and discards the rest without emotional attachment. He stops defending himself to people who aren't trying to understand him. He stops explaining himself to people who've already decided who he is. He stops seeking validation from people whose opinions have no bearing on his path. He becomes a man who cannot be manipulated because he's no longer controlled by the need for approval. He cannot be guilt-tripped because he's no longer vulnerable to shame that doesn't serve his growth. He cannot be triggered because he's trained himself to respond rather than react. He cannot be emotionally blackmailed because his peace is no longer for sale. Watch him in moments of pressure. A crisis emerges, people around him are panicking, and he is calm. Not because he doesn't care, but because he's trained himself to separate what's happening from his judgment about what's happening. The situation is the situation. His response is his choice. He doesn't add fuel to chaos with emotional reactivity. He doesn't make decisions from fear or anger. He pauses, assesses, and acts from a place of clarity and purpose. This is what emotional bulletproofing looks like in practice. It's not stone-cold indifference. It's not suppressing your feelings or pretending you're unaffected. It's having such command over your internal state that external circumstances can't knock you off center. It's being fully present with your emotions, feeling them, acknowledging them, but not being ruled by them. It's the difference between experiencing anger and being angry, between feeling disappointment and being disappointed, between noticing fear and being afraid. The world will test you constantly. People will try to provoke you. Circumstances will try to break you. Disappointments will try to define you. But when you've built this Stoic habit, when you've trained yourself daily to pause, observe, reflect, and choose, you become unshakable. You walk through life with a dignity that can't be taken, a calm that can't be disturbed, presence that commands respect not because you demand it, but because you embody self-mastery. People will notice. They'll wonder how you stay so composed when everyone else is losing their minds. They'll wonder why their usual tactics don't work on you, why you can't be baited into drama, why you seem immune to the emotional turbulence that rocks everyone around you. And the answer is simple. You've done the work. You've built the habit. You've mastered the pause. Being emotionally bulletproof doesn't mean you don't feel. It means your feelings no longer overpower your judgment. You feel deeply, perhaps more deeply than before, because you're actually present with your emotions instead of being possessed by them. You feel joy without clinging to it. You feel pain without being destroyed by it. You feel anger without acting from it. You feel fear without being paralyzed by it. Your emotions become information, signals, teachers, but they are no longer your masters. You are the master. You are the one who decides what gets in and what doesn't. What you carry and what you release, what you respond to, and what you let pass like wind through an open window. This is the ultimate Stoic habit. This is the practice that makes you not just emotionally resilient, but emotionally sovereign. While others are controlled by every shift in circumstance, every opinion, every disappointment, you remain grounded in your own center. You become a man who cannot be shaken because you've built an inner fortress that no external force can penetrate. You become undefeatable not because nothing can hurt you, but because nothing can control you. You become emotionally bulletproof not by hardening your heart, but by mastering your mind. This is the path the Stoics walked 2,000 years ago. And it's the path available to you right now, today, in this moment. Master your inner response. Build the pause. Train the discipline. And watch yourself transform into someone the world cannot break, cannot manipulate, cannot move from the foundation of your own self-command. This is the power that's been waiting inside you all along. This is what it means to be truly free.